Hey, I'm Decathlon Gamer. Welcome back to F1 Manager 23, episode 27. We're entering the third season. It's the 1st of January, so we still have a lot of preseason before we get to the first race, though we will get to the first race in this episode. The preseason combined with that first race make it up this episode. First thing, our training schedule for the pit crew for the month of January. I finally feel confident that I understand the mechanics, the ins and outs of the pit crew training. It's taken me 2 full seasons to really get to grips with it. First thing, never use their schedule. Make up your own. Always go custom, always change it. There's so much more you could do with it than the generic AI setup. Then there's kind of understanding the ins and outs because there's a lot going on. I mean, on the surface, chance of mistakes is percentage based and overall, and so it makes sense to see this screen. However, the core is coming down to these attributes, and these are those attributes that take that decline from the end of one season entering the next. And the decline that we took at the end of last season, literally yesterday, was 5 to 7 points across the board for our six attributes that are listed here. 3 of those attributes have recovered it by the end of January, or will have recovered it by the end of January. The new tires on and the car release were the highest, so they get less of a push this particular month, so they won't be recovered quite to where they were, but the weakest ones will be as strong as they were, except the car building. And by now I've already stated at least once my philosophy on the car building. If we're already getting to the point of having damage to the car with where we're at, competing for points takes everything going right in a race. If you're competing for championships, you need to make sure you're competing for points consistently and can't have 0 point kind of days, so the car building is going to matter far more. Car building takes less of a hit season by season when it's lower. And if we put too much time and effort into car building, it's just never going to amount to much. And look at the relationship here. Car building, our rating is a 42. Car building percentage, 42. Our maximum's at 85, and that is by our team manager, the one who manages pit crews. Her attribute for her pit crew, one of her attributes, it's an 85. So that's why that is their maximum. That's as high as it could go if she leveled that up to an 86, which, by the way, 2 seasons, staff, I haven't gained a single attribute point for a single staff member in 2 years. Something feels broken about that. Anyway, with an understanding, this matters a bit more than this. I mean, they translate to the same, but this one also is calculated with fatigue. And maintaining a low fatigue, of course, is incredibly important to avoid mistakes. That combination is going to come down to careful management. And on a weekly basis, not just on an end-of-the-month basis as we had been doing prior. And at the beginning of the month, we would train hard and then let off as the month goes on. Because I was paying attention to totals, there's a lot more going on than meets the eye. Anyway, our estimated pit stop time did take a big hit heading into the new season, but we are already recovering 4 100ths and already getting under, fractionally, of course, under a 2.5 before the end of January, let alone before the first race of the season, starting ahead of where we were last year. And by the end of the season, we were consistently in the top 10 for pit stops. And we seem to be headed the right direction once again. I've got a boost to car building this month, but it won't happen very often. Mostly I just want to make sure it doesn't decline. Gotti is still a free agent, but in this new year, in this new market, there are a fairly decent number of new gens who have appeared in the pool, including Tamo Tanaka, a third female, and she's gotten a position with an F3 team, PHM Racing. So she at 18 years of age, is appearing on the scene. We'll get her scouted up and find out. It's going to take 2 years before we can bring her in as probably a reserve driver initially. But our goal of the all-female that we initially had is a possibility down the road. And at this rate, I do suspect it's going to take us more than 2 years to be getting Flourish to become a champion. So there's a very good chance that we are at some stage moving on from Sargent to Tanaka. Whether that is more than 2 years down the road depends on how things are going. I would imagine at least a reserve driver, and then start doing FP1s in place of Sargent every single race weekend to get some extra experience and help her level up faster. I still don't know quite how that system works this year, though, comparatively to last year. Last year I had a very simple system. There's a set number of XP you need to level up, and you get it. Now it's just monthly gains. So how does the monthly gains work? Does that experience still matter? Does FP1 sessions still matter for a reserve driver? Does overtakes, defending successfully or otherwise, does that all still matter? Because now there's the morale system, right? Now it's applied to morale. Does it do anything on leveling them up? First wave of upgrades for the car. So the chassis is in pretty sad shape. I haven't put too much into it, so you can see a lot of, it's all around 60 to 65%. That's even with the couple extra percentage points coming into the car. The underfloor is significantly better, but it's one that really makes gains on the car in a significant manner. So we're going to put some emphasis into that. The side pods, I'm aiming for a little more speed. Noticed our top speed was a bit off. Cornering was kind of average. So drag reduction, this is all 63 to 71% on where these all fit in. So the side pods was one of those areas that could make fairly significant gains. Not normally as impactful. The underfloor, front and rear wing are the most impactful, but I've put so much time and effort into the front and rear wings recently that those gains are starting to get marginal. We'll still need to get into them, but there's not as much room. So where there's space to make a bit more rapid gains, I'm going to try to get those going for us. The underfloor was one that still had some space for that, so it's going to get at least a couple of designs this year, though it's almost to that 80% threshold. Team roster updates for the new season. Verstappen partnered with Sainz. Leclerc partnered with Russell at Ferrari. Reserve drivers are now as good as Sargent, or very, very nearly. Stroll and Pourchaire at Aston Martin. Perez leading Mercedes and Ocon. Dang, that's a different lineup. Alpine has Piastri and Gasly. McLaren with Magnussen and Norris. Haas, Giovinazzi and De Vries. That's a weak lineup for them. That's going to be easier for us to handle. AlphaTauri have some quality, 84 in Tsunoda and Zhou Guanyu, but what's the car going to be like, I suppose? Haas looks like they're going to be pretty easy to beat based on a car that's struggled to develop and now a couple weaker drivers. We, of course, still have our 60-80 matchup. Weakest pairing on the grid. But Alfa Romeo, Bottas, and Albon remain in place. And if they still have a weaker car, then you know that that's two teams we could beat. The big question then becomes, can we beat AlphaTauri? After that, things start to get a little bit out of control. Magnussen might be one we could beat regularly. We were competing with Norris despite the high quality he is. Alpine with Piastri only in 82. Maybe we can compete with him. We'll see. Tanaka is on the last place team, but she is the first car. So we'll see how her development progresses. Currently a 45 overall, so 15 below Flourish. But does she have a higher ceiling? Is she the one It's possible, right? If she has a significantly higher ceiling, it's possible that she could be the one winning that championship eventually. February 1st, Tanaka has already leveled up. She's been in the database for 1 month and she's already leveled up. Cornering, Flourish significantly faster, but braking, Tanaka is 10 points better. Control, Flourish is 10 points ahead. Smoothness, huge advantage for Flourish. Of course, she has developed that quite well over the last season, from, maybe a 60 to a 74. Adaptability has also improved rapidly for Flourish, being in an F1 seat. That's a 50 for Tanaka. Overtaking, +4 to Flourish. We've got +28 in defending. Huge advantage there. Reactions, only a +2. In accuracy, +16. So Flourish, better across the board other than braking. But development rate is high for Tanaka, and it's already just average for Flourish, meaning she does not develop incredibly fast. She's +14. Now, when Tanaka's a 60, will she still be high development rate, or will she also be down to average at that point? That's a big question on where the comparisons will lie eventually. Tanaka's got a long ways to go to catch Flourish, though. That's going to take her quite a while to reach that. But if she's, 52, 53 in 1 year, and 55, 56 after 2 years, before we get her into a race seat, she won't be much worse off than Flourish is now by that point. Our driver development update for the turn of the month, Logan Sargent, nothing. No changes at all. That sucks. But we do get a +1 on control for Flourish now, 64. So she got slightly better. That's a terrible month in the simulator for the pair of them, though. You can see from here how this kind of process works as we have our February training set up. We have our first race at the end of the month, but then you do have a bye week right after. So looking at this rest day, you can see our fatigue level is well rested, 18% at the end of that day after resting. It was 27% the day before. So we gain 9% of rest each day that we take off fully. So that brings us down to 9. And then at the end of this day, we're at 0. The next day, it's a race weekend. It brings us up to 8%. The next day brings us up to 16. So practice qualifying ends up being a +8 at the end of the day, as opposed to a rest day. But then by the end of the other day, by the end of the race weekend, you jump to 29%. You've got to go back in and recover. You can see we're at 30% the next day with training. And then we drop to 27 because we only have one session, but then 18, 9, and that brings you right back to 0 at the end of the month. And then you can immediately start training again. In fact, you can get away with a little more training if you wanted going forward, right? You could do a little bit more and it's not going to have much of a negative impact, but we are exactly at 0, not kind of a negative where it can go below. So for the next day to be fully training is probably a good thing. Here you can see 2% becomes 3, becomes 4, depends on what you're training, but usually it's a +1 or 2. You can see the gym training is a bit heavier. It's about 3.5% gained daily. And so that does accumulate a bit more than the others. At the end of the month, we're looking at dropping another 0.02, getting us to a 2.48. That's only one gym session. So by the time you're here, that's about where we're going to be for the race. That's a great start to the year. That is a great start to the year. It's definitely faster than we were at the beginning of last season, where we began in the 2.5s. We began the previous season in the 2.6s. Successive years, we've shaved nearly a tenth off from the entirety of the season and then rolling into the next one. So we are continually managing things well and a little bit ahead of the curve and slowly getting better and better as a team, where, to my knowledge anyway, the others are essentially stagnating. Also, where I gained on 3 of these attributes, the losses we had for the end of the season, those 3 were already now going to be pushing beyond where we were even at the end of the season. Already. After the first race weekend. We now have a fourth attribute that is caught up to where it was at the end of the season. And then car release, still have a way to go on there. Still got a little bit of recovery to do on the car release. And then, of course, the car building. The car building only lost about 4. It'll already have gained back a couple. No, it's still got, I think we finished the season at like a 46 or 47. Either way, we're off to a good start when it comes to the pit crew. So excited for the year to come and excited to see us competing not just for a top 10, but consistently top 5 pit stop. That's my goal this season. Bahrain testing is a concerning sight because none of the 3 upgrades that we've done since January are on the car, or were on the car, but they'll all be on the car for the race weekend. So we went into testing with the car we started on January 1st. We've got 2 more upgrades on the way as well. So 3 already done, a 4th and 5th coming. It'll help. But the Bahrain testing suggests that we could have some issues on our hands this season, as our acceleration and engine cooling have fallen to last, and nothing else is in the top 10. Our strongest area is the combination of DRS effectiveness and low, medium, high speed under dirty air conditions. So following other cars closely is our best strength, but even then, it's not good. We're going to have our hands full trying to get anywhere near the points here to start the season. So that then begs the question of where do things lie for this season? Board confidence is currently medium. Race performance, happy, very good end of season. Only a single disappointed performance in the final 8 races after we had only had, I think, 1 success over an 8 race stretch. But they were disappointed with how we critically failed our objective last year. But keeping those finances in check makes a huge difference for us. And with a season objective, once again, of 7th place. That's good to see. That is really good to see that they are just aiming for 7th place this year. The long-term objective of being a points contender and scoring in half of the races, the target season is this season. And from the looks of that car, we are not going to be anywhere near scoring in half of the races. Maybe we will score in some races, but I think we're, at the moment, in for a similar season to what we just had. We have improved facilities, so we can develop the car and maybe be better than we were a year ago. But we started in a good place, high-speed cornering, just weak everywhere else. This year, I don't think we're necessarily as weak, but the acceleration is pretty bad. I think I'm happy with some of the upgrades we've just made, though, and what they'll add to the car, but what has everybody else done? I have 6 refurbishment projects and 2 upgrades all happening at the same time. It has cut our funding down to $6 million, but as we enter our first race weekend and a turn of the month coming soon, we should see that grow back to about $12 million here very soon. That was a lot. Usually you had emails that kind of show up telling you that the condition is dropping of various things. We aren't getting that here. You're just expected to know, and I didn't know. I've been paying attention to the car development, which needed a lot of refurbishment there too, but we've got an upgrade and just two that are down on condition. Money's hard to come by when you're at the back of the grid.
A very warm welcome to you all. It sure does feel good to be back. As we start a brand new season, the slate is wiped clean, and all 20 drivers prepare to make an instant impact ahead of an exciting year. Bahrain International Circuit was Formula One's first venue in the Middle East, and is still a calendar favourite. Dusty and challenging, this desert track is a real test of endurance for teams and for drivers. There's new blood competing for Aston Martin this weekend. Will they manage to be a game changer?
Analyzing qualifying, there's some worrying signs, but also some trends standing out. So Red Bull's quickest, 128.4 to a 128.9 was the time. Let's take the Q1 time because we didn't get out of Q1, folks. 128.6. So that's kind of our competitive signs, just a little bit off, kind of consistently. Well, a full second off in Q2. but fast compared to everybody else. Very fast compared to everybody else, because then it jumps. Ferrari seems to be second quickest, but McLaren, Norris, getting up where he doesn't necessarily belong, getting up there, really getting up there on time, actually really consistent. So Ferrari looks like with two better drivers will compete better than McLaren, but they seem to be similar. Mercedes next quickest and not far behind with Perez and Ocon. And then the Aston Martins. Also, similar pace. In fact, they were both ahead of the, or 1-1 ahead of the Mercedes in Q1. In Q2, neck and neck. Same thing. I mean, they had identical times for Ocon and Stroll. Porsche was ahead of Perez. And both Ocon and Stroll in Q2. So, really tight battle, looks like. The Mercedes and Aston Martins to finish off the points. But with Magnussen in a McLaren, that's going to open up our opportunities for 10th place to be somebody else on a fairly consistent basis. Now, Tsunoda squeezed in there, but Tsunoda is not. It's not the AlphaTauri that's the next quickest. It is the Alpine. The Alpine's the next quickest. Kevin Magnussen should be up there, and certainly had a much better Q1 time, but inconsistency dropped him down, and he had a bad Q2 run, which saw him last in Q2. But the McLaren can regularly compete for 10th. Alpine looking like 11th, 12th on a regular basis. Tsunoda looks like 13th. But then the worrying thing is you've got the Alfa Romeos and the Haas cars somewhere around a low 130. A few tenths off of the back of everybody else. So you've got 12, 13 if you add Magnussen that are up there. And then it's the AlphaTauris, the Alfa Romeos, and the Haas cars. And you've got one AlphaTauri who looks like he's going to score some more points compared to everybody else. Now this is one track. It's a balanced track. There's going to be tracks that are going to favor some teams over others. We are balanced. Not enough so to do anything with it. Logan Sargent, slowest other than Florsch. Florsch nearly a second behind Sargent. She was 9/10 down. That gap's, I guess, closed a little. She was about 1.1 back before. Now she's about 0.9 down. But this does not bode well for us. Now, the thing is, Sargent in a 130.3 is only 2 to 3 tenths off of being ahead of all three of those teams, which would be 7th, 8, 9, 10, right? 3 teams behind us. So that looks like a battle that we can manage. Now, this is with our first 3 upgrades already, so that's worrying. All 3 of those upgrades just came on the car this weekend, so our familiarity is like 60% right now. Did everybody else get a bonus from preseason testing? I don't know. Either way, we're going to have our work cut out for us.
Here in Sakir, the floodlights are on, and it's nearly time for 57 laps around the Bahrain International Circuit. Yuki Tsunoda will be hoping things go his way today.
Starting P10 puts them in the right place to get some points, but there's still a lot to do.
But there's no more time left. We've got a race on our hands. Here we go with the Bahrain Grand Prix. It's lights out and away we go.
All right, we are racing, and because we're starting from the back, we're going to go for the let's go long approach. So we're starting on the mediums where probably everyone else is going to be on the softs, and we'll go a medium soft strategy as a 2-stopper seems inevitable for everyone. We're not the only ones on the mediums, but it's front runners that are trying to set themselves up like that, and Giovinazzi and Zhou Guanyu are the others back here with us in a similar strategy. So 19th and 20th to start. This probably fitting to be a pretty quick race, but let's see how competitive can we be here at the beginning of the season. It looks like it's going to take some upgrades to get where we need to get that couple 2-3 tenths we need on the other cars. So we're going to need some early aggressive upgrades here at the start of the season, I think, to start competing for that 7th place or 8th place. Beating Haas, beating Alfa Romeo seems much more likely. AlphaTauri looks like a challenge. I mean, Tsunoda started 10th. He's already 8th. He's doing a lot where Zhou is not. So not quite sure what's going on there because they have identical driver ratings. So maybe there's new updates on Tsunoda's car that Zhou did not get for this race weekend. Could be the case. I did underfuel quite a bit. We're going to try to... it's clear we're not going to have the pace this race weekend. So already conserve those components a little bit. We might be a little more aggressive with it this year than last, depending on how things are. But our goal really is still just to achieve, sustainable results to keep our job in the short term and continue to develop Flourish to get her a little bit closer to Sargent's time. She's gone from 1.2 to 0.9 down. If we can get her to 0.7, 0.6 this season, that gets you a lot closer to being competitive and racing the back of the grid. And Sargent for now keeping up with Zhou quite easily. That following is leading to a little bit of extra overheating, but nothing too bad. De Vries is on the grid for Haas. That's weird. Sargent has got around Zhou and De Vries here on lap 7. De Vries gets back around. If we can beat Haas today, I suppose 9th is still going to be a failure. We need to get up to 8th to be doing anything, which means we've got to get ahead of the Alfa Romeos. Albon, Bottas looking dangerous. Haas seems the first car that we're going to be kind of getting around. Fuel saving is going okay here on lap 13. We've got it to 4 kilograms from, or where are we? 4.5 to 5 at the start. Recovery's not that fast though, so we might have to lift and coast at some point. But like I said, today we don't look that competitive, so this is really sustainability and right off the first few races of the year until we can get the right upgrades on the car to get a bit more competitive. We are catching Giovinazzi and De Vries both pit, same lap, double stack. And Flourish, for now, ahead of De Vries. A number of other cars pitting. Now remember, we are doing the mediums where most of the cars around us are doing the softs. So this was our stint where we were going to be slower. Sargent for a moment was all the way up to P7. That's because others are pitting. Our virtual is still right back where we were. Sargent down pit road for the first time today on lap 24, relinquishing the 8th position. We're going to come back out after a 2.677 stop. That is incredibly slow. We're going to come back out in 17th. Flourish also heading down pit road now. We're not going to want to stay aggressive or attack long. 2.443, a full 0.2 faster for Flourish. And that was a very good pit stop. Still getting up to temperature here, but settling in. There you go. 3.5 on the fuel, so we've gained 0.5 in 8 laps, something like that. So definitely recovery is on. 32 laps to go, though. 0.5, 8 laps, 32 to go, needing 3.5. Means we are going to have to lift and coast at some stage, unless there is a VSC out there. So, Sargent resuming from P17, Flourish P20. Those around us. De Vries opted for the mediums. A number of other cars have opted for the mediums at this point. Stroll, Norris, and Verstappen have not pit yet. Still out there, so they must be trying to do a one-stopper. Everybody else on a two-stopper. And we've already taken care of the slow stint. We're going to be faster the rest of the way. We should be able to open up a gap over De Vries. And hopefully, with Giovinazzi pitting quite a bit earlier, we should be faster than him and closing that gap. So let's keep an eye on that for now. Can we beat one team today at least? And if we can get lucky with like Tsunoda, he's down to P11 already, so he's not faring as well as he was before. He's got 1 in Gasly behind him that's likely to overtake him at some point and drop him down to P12, and then Magnussen, the other one that's out of position. But if we can get ahead of the two Haas cars and have a problem for Tsunoda, that's beaten 2 teams today. I'll take that. That would be a good start of season situation for us. But we're 51 seconds behind Verstappen. But he is not pit yet, so there's half of that gap is from the pit stop. For now, we're 3.5 ahead of De Vries, 5 behind Giovinazzi. That's the one to keep an eye on in the short term. Field's pretty spread at the moment. And after a few more laps, yes, we are trending the right way. We are pulling away from De Vries, who's just been overtaken by Zhou. And then we are closing the gap on Giovinazzi, now just 3 seconds behind him. And here comes pit stops Verstappen. Okay, did he go hards? Is he trying to go the distance? Where did he come out at? Whoa, Stroll just pit. Softs for Stroll. Interesting. Oh, not sure. Are they trying to do a one-stopper on a medium to softs? Could be. Suppose it could be. Lap 36. The fuel's still at 3.1. On the softs, we are not recovering the fuel quite as fast as we did before, and now we're surrounded by cars on mediums. Oh, it's Sargent. Sargent with the lockup. We could afford a mistake from Florsch. She's in last. But Sargent, that's killing me, Smalls. Killing me.
Things were going smoothly.
Okay, the write-off for today is back to a write-off. How much tire wear? How much tire wear has he picked up? Love that you get the dust, though, when you go off here in Bahrain. The overheating definitely brought him up by 5%.
Yeah, I made a little mistake
He dropped close to 10%.
Don't worry.
At least 7. I mean, Florsch has improved a lot on her smoothness, but I think she's still a little bit behind Sargent. Florsch still on the lead lap, but she's got leaders right behind her. So there's going to be a lap worth of fuel. Let's figure out how much a lap worth is. Sargent crossing the line, 33.6 at the moment. Let's say it was a 33.7. I didn't look down immediately. Just in case, we'll add that 10th. 32 flat, so 1.7. 1.7. Also, the Alfa Romeo Bottas has just pit. It's going to bring him out behind us for now, but we still have another pit stop to do as we get overtaken by Pourchaire in the Aston Martin. In F1 Manager 22, it's Pourchaire who I won the championship with twice. Anyway, blue flag's coming for Florsch. I was just saying Pourchaire a second ago. That was confusing. We get ahead for a fraction of a second on Gasly, but he actually outbrakes us into turn 1 to stay ahead. So for me, this is actually good. Just stay on him and use the DRS for a little bit before we lose ground on him. He's on brand new mediums, so he won't have crazy pace. Oh, there's the yellow flag. Multiple cars crash. We just saw the dust of that crash. That was not far in front of us. Ooh, the other Aston Martin, along with an Alfa Romeo. That's good. It's Albon. Ooh, look at that save. Oh, no, it's not a save. He went off the other direction. He went off the other direction after. There you go. Pourchaire with the follow-up. Here's the follow-up. Ready, set, and... Oh. Interesting that he slid off and then back across track. That's the first we've seen that. You see that in real life. It's happened plenty of times. That's the first I've seen it in-game. So that now puts Sargent in P12. Oh, he's on his optimal pit stop lap with the extra... Yeah, let's go ahead and pit. Final Stroll back around us already. Pourchaire just 5 seconds back, so he was able to continue on. Bottas also, they're just behind us for now. Looking at the gaps, though, we're looking at a good 29-second gap to Giovinazzi, so I would think that Sargent will come back out in P15 here. So we've gained a position over Albon through the problems. 2.76. Crash, 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 crash.
Right, so this was the fourth corner. Barely any room to maneuver. Has to be
Mercedes
said,
going for the
that was
overtake.
pretty risky.
And
I wouldn't be
Tsunoda
surprised
not
if there
giving
were a few
Ocon the
words
space.
exchanged when they get...
It was only a local yellow. We come out behind Giovinazzi. Oh, surprising. 2 seconds back on Giovinazzi, so we're still going to have work to do to overtake him. Problem on the right front, 4.622. Not a good start. We had 0 fatigue. We had very low chances of mistake. And yet we've only had 1 good pit stop today out of 4. Only officially 1 mistake, but rough weekend for the pit crew here to start the season. Blue flags. So Flourish, first car, a lap down. Albon has caught up to De Vries, 12 seconds behind Sargent. Will he have enough pace? We're 18 behind Bottas. So I would imagine over 13 laps that shouldn't be a factor. But can we catch Giovinazzi? Can we take care of the fuel? For Flourish, needs to be 1.7. We're at 2.9. She's got to gain 1.2. We've got a little stretch here where we could probably do that, so we're going to go conserve with her. But back with Sargent. Got the tires to the end of the race. Giovinazzi is on softs, but already well used compared to us, so we should have some additional pace. We were, 8 seconds behind earlier? No, 6. We slowly brought it down. We're going to have to do that same thing to compete, but with the threat of we're 19 seconds and on the softs. I doubt we're gonna get lapped here, so we're gonna have to lift and coast like now. So no Hamilton, no Alonso on the grid this season, and that has opened up the grid to a couple rookies. Porsche. Well, and then the return of Giovinazzi, the return of De Vries. Lap 51. We're good on fuel for Flourish now, so she can get on with it. Sargent. Giovinazzi has caught up to us. In fact, we were overtaken briefly. We are just a second behind Tsunoda. We've caught Tsunoda. We've gotten around Giovinazzi, and we've caught Tsunoda. We could get ahead of, and we are getting ahead. Wow, okay. What is their strategy? Oh gosh, 39% used mediums, no wonder. And 52% for Giovinazzi, no wonder we have additional pace compared to them. And a bunch of medium guys ahead of us, including a Porsche who's got some damage and is only 3.5 seconds and on badly used mediums. Could we get all the way up to P13 today? Not a big deal because we're ahead of 2 teams. So we've gotten 8th place on the day, which means they'll be content with that. They'll be satisfied. They won't be happy, but they'll be okay. And we've pulled away 2.3, 2.7, and nearly okay on the fuel. Flourish is about half a lap behind De Vries as we're starting to overheat, and we're good. All right, all over the back of Porsche and making the push and the pass. That's P13. For how things were looking, that's pretty dang good. That is pretty dang good. But that overheating is going to be a problem. That's almost 2 laps of running we have to do here. So let's let this cool down a little bit. Flourish has not been lapped by Sargent, at least, but by so many others. Oh my gosh, we're catching Piastri now too. 1.6 behind. It says final lap, but we still have 1 more to go. And look at that, 4/10 behind. Oh my goodness, we're up to P12. Verstappen takes the win ahead of Sainz, and then Leclerc. There you go, fuel's right. And deploy for this last little bit.
There's a yellow
No,
flag
maybe I'll
now.
save it. Norris with a spin.
Yellow head, yellow head.
There's a yellow flag now.
Yellow head.
Is that going to knock him backwards at all? No, he's all the way up in P5. Magnussen did get all the way up to P9, so McLaren is fast. Gasly and Stroll, the other ones getting the points. Bottas is right there, though, so Alfa Romeo's looking a different team. Albon had a problem. That's the only reason why he's down in P18. Deciding to use deploy for this last little bit. Flourish finishes in last. Still there. Still her favorite spot to be. But a P12 for Sargent today. That's big. That's big. That's a good finish for us. Flourish is 2.442. The only good stop we had was only 9th quickest today. A little disappointing. We're looking at Ferrari, Red Bull, McLaren, all definitely quicker. It looks like Mercedes also quicker. And AlphaTauri, I mean, we can't do a 2-3 right now. So we are a ways behind. We do have a ways to go yet. But I'd like to see us get down into those 2-2s sooner rather than later this season. That is going to do it for this first episode, though. A little worrying on where we're at, but you could tell race pace-wise, we weren't that bad off. We didn't have the raw speed, but it's close with those other teams. It's competitive with those teams. It's competitive to 8th. 7th, 6th look a bit ahead of us. It's only one track, though. So 8th looks quite possible, which means we can get a lot of satisfied performances and keep our job while we continue to develop, continue to upgrade facilities, and continue to get Flourish to get better and close that gap on her teammate. That's going to do it for this episode, though. I'm Decathlon Gamer. Like, comment, subscribe, and I'll see you next time. Have a good one. Be safe out there. Bye for now.